Hey, Hollywood progressive friends here. The trio is back again. It's been a little while. We saw a pretty interesting play this past weekend, and we'd like to talk to you about it. The name of the play is Four Women in Red. It's a world premiere of a play, and it's playing at the Victory Theater on Victory Boulevard in Burbank. It plays now through March 23rd, Friday and Saturday evenings, and Sunday afternoon. Basically, it's a well-known story about the large number of Native American women who go missing each year. Some presumably murdered, some trafficked, some simply disappeared. In a recent year, there were nearly 6,000 such women. And so four Native American actors, actresses portray loved ones of that are missing people, missing women in their lives. One is a partner who's been missing 2 months. Another woman is missing her daughter for 6 years. And they get no help from the sheriff. The sheriff blows them off, but that's where they meet. They meet in the lobby of the sheriff's department and commiserate with each other and form a bond and go through the play trying to track down their loved ones. What'd you think, Nia?
Yeah, so this play is it touches on an extremely important topic, like my dad just mentioned. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Indigenous women and children, although the children were not necessarily addressed in this play, but women who go missing for a number of reasons. This is a very tough conversation to have. This is a tough subject to talk about, one of many tough subjects happening in our country at the moment. And sadly, I wasn't as pulled in emotionally as I thought I would or should be with the story of this play. That being said, I thought the setting of this play was the set design of this play was very realistic. I felt like I was exactly in all these different places that they set the play in. I just I personally was a little let down with the gravity of the play. I felt like we should have left mad, seething mad, or sad, or heartbroken, or some sort of overwhelming emotion, just based solely on what the play was about. You have four different groups of women who are all, or I guess three different groups across four women. Each of them are missing a woman in their life, and there should be some rage with that, and unfortunately, uh, there wasn't. Sharon, what did you think of this? It's kind of a hard one because it is such a powerful topic with sort of a soft presentation with this play for me.
Yeah, yeah. So I could see you having the experience that you had with the play, Nia. My experience was different, and I think I looked at it from through a couple of different lenses. One thing that's addressed in this play is the legal aspect. These women, for the most part, or the women, all of the women that this play centers on, live in Indian land. So they live on a reservation. And the jurisdictional issues with law enforcement um, puts them at a disadvantage. So women are already at a disadvantage. All women are at a disadvantage when it comes to this kind of thing, even white women. But we're all at a disadvantage. And I think that we don't get the kind of support and protection that our tax dollars pay for. But in this case, it's even worse because the law enforcement or the justice system that exists outside of the reservation, they won't go into the reservation and protect these women. And I want to talk a little bit about what police protection looks like just in general, not on the reservation. And then on the reservation itself, they're underfunded. They being the Indian law enforcement is underfunded. So the women are just left out in the cold. So that was one of the lenses that I was looking through is how it touched on the lack of support that women receive, particularly women of color and especially Indian women in this country from law enforcement. And the next thing that really touched me, by the way, as I was watching, I could feel myself feeling really tired. And what I was feeling was because I was looking at it from several different lenses, I was feeling overwhelmed and feeling just really sad. Sad that what we're watching here, and for some people it's a form of entertainment, is the plight, the desperate plight of women of color, and especially Indian women. There's this term, missing white woman syndrome. And that was the thing that I thought about. Now, for those of you who are watching have never heard of missing white woman syndrome, it's a term that was coined by the late Gwen Ifill, Gwen Ifill is a famous journalist. I think she worked on PBS for many, many years. And she coined this term, missing white woman syndrome, because according to Gwen, and also according to statistical information, when a white woman is missing, she gets all kinds of media coverage. It's sort of like clickbait. That's what it turns out to be. It's modern day, what we call now is clickbait. But at the time that Gwen Ifill came up with the term missing white woman syndrome, we weren't really online as much as we are now. It just so happens that the evening when we came home, I watched a movie that was on Netflix. And the movie that was on Netflix was a true story about a white woman who was abducted and raped. It was the story of Denise, I copied her name here, Denise Huskins, who lived in Northern California. And the media coverage was just, you could not get away from seeing that this woman was missing. She was blonde. She was attractive by American standards, and you couldn't turn the channel without seeing her face on the channel. Now you compare that to what happens to the indigenous women, and there's just no comparison. So there was this overwhelming feeling of sadness for me, that this is the state. Nobody pays less taxes because they're people of color, but they get less services, less protection. And so that's I felt that they did a good job in conveying how there's a sense of hopelessness that comes down on the families of these missing indigenous women, because they really know that they're fighting an uphill battle.
So I felt that what the strength of it for me was to put me right in the emotion that these women go in. Now, I've read lots of stories about this issue. I would have guessed that there are 5,000 Native American women are abducted, many of them murdered. I'd heard of these stories, um, but here I got to see four Native American women from kind of young to old portraying other Native American women, and you really got a sense that those actresses were really feeling what they were saying, and they were telling the story in a powerful way that I found attractive and somewhat moving. I will say that I thought the scenery was good. But there was an awful lot of changing the scenes. It's almost as if it was written to be a film, which you could cut from here and cut to there and cut to there. They were flipping the scenery around so much that it got in the way a little bit. Nonetheless, it's an important story. It's obviously it was very attractive. The audience was mainly Native Americans, maybe related to the cast. I don't know. Really good. I will say, a few years ago, I saw a movie called Wind River, which was about the murder of one particular Native American woman at what they call a man camp. Man camps are, now that we've opened up the countryside to drill, baby drill, they have lots of oil fields next to reservations. The oil fields bring in lots of men only who live in trailers in the camp and abuse, berate, perhaps rape, perhaps murder the Native American women in the region. And that film was quite good. And the difference is the four women in red was really well done and interesting, and the acting was good, but it didn't like build to it didn't like punch you in the gut. You knew from 2 minutes into it that bad stuff was going to happen. There was going to be some bad news, but it kind of came and it went, and we went on to the next scene. Um, I think the play needed some tightening. I think it needed fewer scene changes. I think it needed more leading up to dramatic high points. Further thoughts, Nia?
No, I absolutely agree with both of you, and also I think this play is extremely important. Uh, as everyone who sees watches these videos knows, we tried to find plays that are social justice oriented or leaning, and this was social justice. Period. This was social justice implied and meant through and through. I think with a couple of little changes, you could have a really powerful piece that uh, is educational. I absolutely learned things in this, a couple of little tidbits of information that I didn't know beforehand. And if someone isn't aware of the plight of these Indigenous women, this is very informative and has the potential to be a powerful introduction, I would say, to this deep rooted, deep seated hatred towards Native American women and also women in a good, I'll say, toe in the water to some of these problems that face people who are not white in our country.
That's right. If there was a couple of things that I would change is I would incorporate a call to action at some point, perhaps at the end of the play. There was a Q&A afterwards, but we couldn't stay for the Q&A. We had another engagement, so maybe they talked to a call to action. But you kind of leave feeling like, hopeless. And I think that especially in these times when it appears that half of America is quite comfortable with having toxic masculinity being the leadership, the highest of the high leadership positions in this country. We don't really mind having people in leadership who have been accused numerous times and even have been, I won't say convicted, because there was a civil action where had to pay a fine for violating women. So we're in trouble in this country on many fronts, but especially when it comes to not protecting women. Oh, and I said I wanted to say something about police and protection. So according to the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, the police do not have a duty to actually protect individuals. So those of you who are facing a crisis at home, or maybe you have a restraining order, you should know that according to the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, the police do not owe a duty to you to protect you, nor do they have to. They have no obligation to enforce the restraining order. So just so you know.
So the play was written by Laura Shamas, directed by Jeanette Harrison, starred Carolyn Dunn, Harriet Felice, Joey Reyes, and Janine Washington, all of them who indicated their tribes on the program and in the talkback. Anybody else have something? I did have a thought, I know the thought I had. So Deb Haaland, who recently stepped down as Secretary of the Interior, she was the first Native American woman to hold a cabinet position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if she was the first Native American to hold a cabinet office, but anyway, she stepped down, and under her leadership, they set up a day, May 5th, as an awareness of this issue, awareness of Native American women, to draw some little bit of attention to it, because that's kind of my thought. People like us and the people in that audience care about those issues. But the people who really need to hear it and change their behavior, they won't, unfortunately. And I don't know what you do about that. But I do agree. I think there was a call to action. Keep pressing legislatures to work on this issue. I think one of the issue is these reservations are way out in the countryside, so they don't get the same kind of coverage that a San Francisco paper would cover. Nonetheless, it's a serious problem indeed. And I would say this play is well worth your time to go see.
But I just want to inject here, the geographic location of these reservations may or may not factor in to the fact that they don't get coverage because Black women go missing too, and they're not located out in reservations. They live right in the hearts of most cities in America. That's where Black people live. And when we go missing, you ain't hearing nothing about it. And you got 2 Black women in your life, so you should be aware of that. The movie that I was talking about is called American Nightmare, and it was about Denise Huskins, who was kidnapped. And yes, she did get a lot of media coverage, but what was so tragic is when she was released, she was treated like crap. She was actually treated as if she had set the whole thing up. The police wouldn't even hear her as she tried to tell her story. She had to give details of her rape to male police officers, and they didn't believe her. And she had to do it over and over and over again. So it's a bad situation that we have here, and we absolutely must make some changes.
Final thoughts, Nia?
Go see it.
So one other thing I thought, one other heartwarming part was when the 4 women come together in the lobby of the sheriff's department, they're isolated. They really don't even necessarily want to talk to each other. They don't want to sit down at the same table. But over the course of the play, they come together. They understand each other. They overcome their differences. They begin working together on it, which is, I think, what we need to do. I think we need to work together on these kind of issues to have some kind of impact on them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking us to this place, sweetheart.
Right? Thanks for going with me. Thank you, Nia. See everybody this Sunday. We're going to see another play.
All righty. So long.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.